and welcome to Handpan Fundamentals. Today I'm tackling a tiny task. What is a handpan? A type of percussion, an idiophone. The handpan makes a noise when it's struck with a finger, or occasionally with mallets. It's a convex steel drum. So to understand the handpan, we've got to understand the history of the steel pan. These concave instruments originally came from Trinidad and Tobago. Musical instruments were outlawed in the early 1900s, but as a form of rebellion, and because people love to dance, the locals started hitting on anything they could find. Someone discovered that an empty oil drum, those large barrels, made a great metallic sound when they hit it. So slowly they started trying to tune. These are made with very thick metal. To get a sound out of a steel pan, you need a beater, normally with some rubber around the end. By using metal that's a lot thinner and a lot more sensitive, we can actually play it with our hands. And as you notice, it's flipped the other way around. The first handpan came to the scene in 2001, and it was called a hum, made by the Pan Art Company. Because of that original instrument, often people call the handpan the hang drum, the hang pan, any combination of those, but that's not quite correct. That's a bit like calling every tablet an iPad, or every games console an Xbox. It works this way around. An iPad is a type of tablet, but not the other way. You can't call every tablet an iPad. This message was not sponsored by Apple, unfortunately. Some hangs are handpans, but not all handpans are hangs. That confused me way too many times. The design of a handpan can really vary. You might have 9 notes, or you might have loads of notes, up to 17 on this one. But they're mostly arranged in a similar way. There is a big note in the middle called the ding, and this is the scale that it's in. So if that note in the middle is an E, your scale is some kind of an E. You don't know whether that's a major, harmonic minor, melodic minor, pentatonic, but you know that E is a really important note in your scale. Most handpans look like this on the bottom. They've got a big hole that you can pop your clothes in if you're going on holiday. This is sometimes known as the goo, and that's what encourages the Helmholtz resonance. Basically, when you play a note on the top, because the bottom is tuned in sympathy, it rings louder and clearer and truer. However, some instruments have notes on the bottom, like this one. Handpans are just getting bigger and bigger, not in size but in capability. These ones are sometimes known as mutants because you can extend the scale in different directions. This instrument also has something known as a cyclops note. The rest are laid out in a circle, but there is one small one at the front. More notes on an instrument may make it more versatile. You could play more chords and different notes. However, there are some drawbacks. It's harder to keep all those notes in tune, and you may have something called crosstalk, where some of the notes don't resonate brilliantly with the ones put beside it. It's even harder to tune a handpan with multiple notes on the surface, and having lots and lots of different notes may mean that it starts to clash. Instead of all the notes ringing beautifully with one another, if there are those dissonant notes near to each other, you might start to hear them interacting with each other in a less pleasant way. One of the draws of the handpan is that all the notes sound good together. This makes it easier and more accessible for beginners. It can be limiting, only having notes from a certain scale. So as you get more advanced, you may want to get more handpans that can interact together. While this means that normally we can't play a whole chromatic scale on one instrument, having 2 is a really good solution. That said, builders are constantly innovating and creating new techniques. These have only come around in the last few years, these ones with all of these notes on the bottom, so I'm really excited to see what happens next with handpan makers. Scale is normally played hand to hand, so the notes go upwards on either side, rather than from left to right, like a keyboard. There are no rules as to how an instrument is laid out. It varies on different things, the size of each note, the shape, what scale you're in. That said, there are a few rules that are normally followed. Generally, the chords are laid out close together, so if there's a triad, this is the play one, miss one, play one, miss one, play one, they all fall under the hand. I want to play B, so these notes are close together. A is on this side. This makes it easier to play chords. That said, some of them will be further spread out, just due to the nature of the instrument. This note in the middle is special, the ding. It has this shoulder, and it borrows from the gamelan idea of gongs. So that metal rings and resonates through the whole instrument in a different way. The handpan shouldn't be confused with the tongue pan. This is a RAV, a type of tongue pan. While they're similar in shape and size, and use similar striking techniques, they're made very differently. A tongue pan is made by cutting. A whole sheet of metal is sliced up to create different sized tongues. The bigger one is lower, and the smaller one is higher. Handpans are made by hammering. Each note has to be tuned by ear with thousands of hammer blows. That's partly why they're so expensive. They need to be made by hand, and they need to be constantly listened to get those overtones that make the sound so rich. When one note's played, we hear overtones. So that means that in addition to the original note, we're normally hearing the octave as well, and normally a fifth above that, and more complexity bringing that sound to our ears. To get a decent handpan, you will have to shell out a fair bit of money. It's worth looking around for second-hand instruments, but normally stick to makers that are well known. There's loads of good resources out there as to where to find your first handpan. But don't be fooled into buying a cheap one off Amazon or Etsy. Those ones are not made in the same way. They're not made with love, and they're not really made with skill. If you can find a handpan for under £500, make sure you listen and look carefully, because it's probably too good to be true. There's no point spending all that money on an instrument that's substandard and not going to bring you joy. Many people do start on tongue pans for that reason. They are a lot cheaper. While they're not the same, you can build up playing technique, the knowledge of music such as rhythm and melody and scale is all completely useful for both of those instruments. So building it up on the tongue pan is a really great start for some people before they want to make the leap and really invest a lot of money in a handpan. And that's why so many resources can be used for both. If you want an up-close look at the handpan everywhere you go, why don't you buy one of my t-shirts? Designed by my aunt Lucy Bergonzi, they've got my hands playing handpans, available to buy. Thanks so much for watching. This was a really quick whiz through handpans, designed for a beginner, so if you want more in depth, check out some other videos and resources around. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Bye! Some handpans are hangs, but not all hangs are handpans. No, that's not right. Some handpans are hangs. Some hangs. And name that's become known. You've got a big hole that you can store your washing in, but it's